Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome to the Sommpour Deep Cut. When you look at the D5 examiner reports from the last few years, a pattern shows up very quickly. The dividing line between a pass and a merit isn't who knows more about fortified wines. It's who writes with precision, who reads the question properly, and who resists the urge to dump everything they've memorized onto the page. Most people don't fail D5 theory because they don't know port or sherry or Madeira. They fail it on exam craft. So, in this episode, I'm not going to tell you what Estufa gem is or how a Solera works. You already have the textbook for that. This is your D5 theory playbook. What examiners actually reward and the traps they're clearly tired of seeing. Let's start with the first place scripts go wrong, the command verb. In every D5 question, WSET tells you exactly what kind of thinking they want. But most of us skim straight past that single word at the start of the sentence. When they say explain, they don't want a list, they want a chain: cause, effect, outcome. Because flour consumes glycerol, pheno is lighter in body and drier on the palate. There is a reason what it does and what that means in the glass. When they say compare, they want direct contrast. Tawny ports gain oxidative complexity in cask, while ruby ports retain fruit purity through shorter reductive aging. You put the two things next to each other and show the difference. When they say discuss, it's not a brain dump. It means evaluate and conclude. While blending ensures consistency in sherry, it also adds stock and storage cost for producers. You weigh up both sides and land somewhere. Describe is about accurate recall. Madeira uses Estufa gem for entry level styles. Premium age indicated wines are matured slowly under Contiro. You're not asked to judge, just state correctly. An outline means gives the sequence, the stages of sherry classification from Sobretabla to Oloroso. Short, ordered, no narrative. If you match your answer to that verb, you are already ahead of the curve. So the first rule in this playbook is simple: read the verb and let it dictate your structure. That leads into the second rule: read, plan, deliver in that order. Most of us read the question once and think, okay, I know this, and start writing. That's how you end up with half an essay on vineyard factors when the question was only about fermentation and fortification. In D5, you have to do three deliberate things before your pen really gets going. First, read the question twice and highlight the verb and the scope. If it says explain about fermentation and fortification decisions and how they influence the style of ruby and tawny port, you do not talk about duro climate or tourism. You stay inside fermentation and fortification, and you stay inside ruby and tawny. Second, spend 60 seconds sketching a plan. Literally, in the margin, intro, then headings, then key points. You're not writing an English essay, you're building a mark earning framework. Third, match your effort to the weighting. A 40 or 50% mark needs depth and development. A 10 or 15 mark sub question needs focus and restraint. Examiners keep saying this: stop giving every question the same amount of space. If you remember nothing else from this section, remember this: the exam does not reward how hard a question felt, it rewards how well you matched your writing to its weighting. Now let's talk about technical precision, where most of the quiet mark loss happens. In D5, close enough is not enough. Numbers, timings, and conditions are not decorations, they're the backbone of your explanation. Take fortification. A strong answer doesn't just say the wine is fortified during fermentation. It states that the base wine is around 5 to 8% alcohol when arrested, that the spirit is about 77%, that adding it stops the yeast, preserves residual sugar, and pushes the wine up towards 19 or 20%. And that is why port feels sweet, full bodied, and warming. You've gone from a vague process to something that links directly to texture and style. In sherry, the details are Floor's living conditions. Around 15% alcohol, cool, humid bodegas, limited oxygen at the wine surface, and then what that does: acetaldehyde giving green apple and almond notes, lower glycerol giving a lighter body, pale color, and preserved acidity. When the floor dies and oxidative aging takes over, those parameters change. The color deepens, body fills out, and oxidative notes appear. If you're asked about VOS or VORS, you define them clearly and connect that scale to aging, time, and price. In port, precision means understanding why short fermentations and intense extraction matter, not just saying they tread the grapes. You show that color and tannin must be extracted quickly before fortification stops the yeast. You mention fortification at 6 to 8% alcohol leading to high residual sugar. You know that Sima Corgo is a source of structured concentrated wines and that Duro Superior is hotter and drier, giving riper fruit. You can recall the aging ladders: Ruby, Reserve, LBV, Vintage on one side, Basic Tawny through 10, 20, 30, 40 year on the other. In Madeira, you separate Estufa Gem and Contiro with purpose. Estufa gem is heated, quicker, used for commercial styles, giving straightforward caramel and toffee notes. Contiro is slow, oxidative, and premium, barrel stored in warm lofts for years, producing complexity, nut, citrus peel, sometimes smoky notes. And you don't stop there. You link it to quality, price, and cash flow because Contiro ties up capital for a long time. With VDN and Rutherglen Musket, you anchor timing, oxidation, and classification. Early arrest keeps sugar high. Oxidative aging develops rancio character. The ladder from Rutherglen to classic to grand to rare corresponds to time in cask, concentration, and price. And underpinning all of this is grape knowledge that goes beyond flavor descriptors. You know that Palomino is relatively low in acidity and neutral, which makes it suited to floor and oxidative aging. That PX and Moscatel can be sun dried, concentrating sugar. That Touriga National brings color and structure to port blends. You can mention ripening, yields, disease resistance where it's relevant. Layered on top of that is commercial awareness. You don't need to write a business plan, but when a question gives you an opening, you show you understand economics. Blending for consistency and house style. Aging stocks for long periods, tying up cash. Beneficio limits shaping how much port can be made and at what quality levels. Producers diversifying into unfortified wines or cocktail friendly styles. All of that falls under technical precision, and examiners reward it heavily both in D4 and in D5. Now, how you write that knowledge is the next step in the playbook. High scoring answers don't just recite facts, they turn them into reasoning. Instead of port is sweet because they fortify during fermentation, you might say because port is fortified while the wine is still around 6 to 8% alcohol, a high level of residual sugar remains, giving a sweet, full bodied style supported by firm tannins. Fact, mechanism, and outcome in one sentence. Instead of talking about maturation in isolation, you integrate style, quality, and price throughout your answer rather than tagging them at the end. Your structure helps the examiner follow this. Short signposted headings, fortification, maturation, style, and quality keep things organized without turning the script into a bullet point list. Your tone stays analytical, not narrative. You don't rewrite the question as your introduction, and you don't finish with a long summary that just repeats what you've already said. A single sentence that synthesizes that core point is more effective. And this is exactly where the examiner reports start listing pitfalls they see every year. Scripts that are too short for the main question, scripts that ignore weighting and give as much space to a 10-mark sub-question as to a 40-mark primary essay, scripts that describe processes that never say how they influence style, quality, or price, scripts with factual slips, mixing up Estufa gem and Contiro, misnaming Duro terraces, or muddling floor conditions. Scripts that miss plurals, answering about one variety when the question asked about varieties. Scripts that bring in irrelevant content, drawing Solera diagrams in a blending question because that's what the student practiced at home. And on a very practical level, scripts where a whole sub question on the back page is simply never answered. The examiners are not cryptic about this, they spell it out. Which brings us to the last part of the playbook, the merit mindset. When you read distinction level comments, a pattern repeats. Good answers read the question twice. They plan structure around weighting. They are factually accurate, but more importantly, they use those facts to explain wine logic. They connect almost every point to style, quality, or price. They bring in commercial reasoning when appropriate. They stay disciplined, concise, and on topic. In other words, D5 theory isn't testing how much you've memorized, it's testing whether you can take what you know and use it deliberately to answer a very specific question about fortified wines. That is what examiner reports are really asking for when they talk about precision, relevance, and reasoning. And that's how a unit that's worth only 5% of the diploma can still account for 100% of your marks on the day. If you'd like a written copy of the D5 playbook, along with the one pagers and last look sheets for fortified wines, please feel free to join the Sommpour Study Circle. The link is in my episode. I hope you enjoyed listening, and I'll see you on the next one.